all the first three games. And then we're going to break down some Nets baseball, which was a little bit better last week. They went 500, so it's better than having a losing week. And we even going to talk some Washington football team news with some of the breaking stuff that's coming out, some diversity and inclusion going on down there in Ashburn. But before I elaborate, Robbie, how you doing tonight, good sir?
I'm doing okay. Busy work week. I wish the Capitals were playing a little better, a little frustrated with our coach. But, I'm happy we get hockey to talk about, and that's always good. And the rest of the NHL playoffs have been fantastic as well. And the NBA playoffs are just getting started today, actually. And, it's a interesting time in the sports world for sure.
Yeah, I actually had a Colorado game on right now, and they're up 3-0 right now with a 2-1 lead in the series. I believe they're in the third period, so they're looking to close out this series against Arizona, which has been very interesting. Arizona gave a little pushback, but it looked like Colorado is going to handle their business and get these folks up out of there. Oh no, that's a 4 game series. I don't know what I'm tripping. I'm thinking about still about the round robin. Gee, all this is a blur. So we got a lot to talk about tonight. I said let's go ahead and jump into it, Robert. We got a lot of hockey to cover, even though I know it's not going to be the happiest of Capitals talks, but we got to talk about it because it's what happened. So let's go ahead and bring in Anna and get ready to get this '03 whole session of Capitals talking. Anna, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. My heart is breaking for the Capitals out there, but I'm gonna be that black sheep and wanting to say maybe they'll pull it out tomorrow and continue it. Who knows? It was also my first day officially back teaching, so it's nothing surprises me with 2020 anymore. So I'm ready to just kind of embrace whatever happens and just roll with it.
Yeah, that's pretty much all we can do. It's pretty much all we can. I mean, this series, to me, like I said, I haven't seen all the games, but the games that I've watched, it's been a close series. Like I've been watching some of the fans' comments, and they always over, dramatic sometimes. But I didn't really see it as that bad. It just was probably what we've seen with the team not playing the full 60 minutes, and the Islanders just took advantage. And we know what Trotz teaches, and because he was here, and when the team makes a mistake, we saw for years the Capitals jump on them and score and make them pay. And the Islanders are doing the same thing, and basically are giving the Capitals a dose of their own medicine.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest standout um, moments of a Trotz influence is getting into his players' heads about what's going to set Tommy off, because his penalty minutes the first two games were unacceptable. He showed, and I get it, they've got emotions and everything kind of going, but too many times Tommy was in the box, and that was disappointing to see. And I think that we really could have seen a more disciplined player from him, and that was unfortunate. And then of course we don't have Backstrom, so there's a whole slew of things to talk about and make excuses for. But the Islanders have some players that get under my skin. We already know Clutterbuck. But they just seem to just, they're playing smart hockey. Let's just put it that way.
We've seen it before with the Capitals. The only difference is that they have more youth and more speed with their aggressive defense. We saw how the Capitals played under Trotz and how they swarmed and how the forecheck was aggressive and they took away time and space. But you had a lot of veterans on the squad, so it wasn't as fast. Now with these Islanders, they're so young and so fast with the pressure defense that they use that it's very hard to get time and space. I thought we've seen the Capitals, I think, out of sync, especially with Nicky being out and especially with, like I said, Carlson just coming back, from his end, from, him being out. So the timing, the chemistry, and it's not all in sync. And the Islanders are on point and playing solid defense and are basically taking advantage of when the Capitals make mistakes. It's far and few between, but when it happens, the Islanders are finding a way to score and put the Caps in the hole.
Yeah, I think the biggest struggle is one of those situations where you knew that this game was happening. We had the time off in the bubble prior to it, and knew that as soon as that game one was going to happen, which was just, just last Wednesday, they had to go 100%. And unfortunately, that's not what we saw with the Capitals. It took some time, and obviously the scoreboard shows that. So who knows?
I'm just so disappointed, though. I'll be honest. Like, I was expecting so much more, right? I mean, we talked about it all season. It's just, do we do all this build up for weeks? We've been talking about it, and we've just been so excited just for us to get swept in the first round. I hope not.
It's a crazy season. Like I said, when I made a prediction at the beginning of the year that the Capitals would, win the cup, we didn't know we were going to have this pandemic load. And granted, every team has to go through it. But unfortunately, the Caps, ran into a hiccup with injuries, and then the hit on Nikki, which we're going to talk about, because I felt, like we talked about, you spoke about Tom Wilson. If that was Tom Wilson doing that, he'd have been suspended for a couple of games, because that hit, it was an intentional hit to possibly do some damage because of Nikki's concussion history, and didn't even get a major. And, I'm definitely want to speak on that, but the Islanders are a good team, and I hope they don't get swept. I hope they can at least win one. And then you never know. Momentum, we've seen the Capitals, on the other side of it, be up 3-1 and end up losing 4-3. You never know. I'm not going to say it's going to happen. I'm not going to say I'm optimistic it's going to go that way, but it just takes one thing to get things going the right way. And I mentioned last week that they just aren't getting the bounces. The Islanders are getting the bounces because they're hustling more. Their legs are fresher for some reason. Well, they're younger. So they've been out there grinding. So you can't really take nothing away from the Islanders from what they've been doing and just say, the Capitals suck. The Islanders are playing some good, solid hockey all the way around.
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a fluke, right? I mean, the Islanders are a good team, and they're coached by a good coach. And I know we'll get into it in a little bit, but there's a big question mark on, how important was Trotz into, 2018? Was he the reason we won the cup, or did we do it because we were always planning, that was sort of the trajectory of this team, always, they were eventually going to get a cup, or how much is it the coach, how much is it the players, and there's some big question marks.
I think the X factor is the coach, because it's a business, and even though Trotz took them to the promised land, they were looking, I don't know why they were looking at him like, because we had that debate on air when when he left, that we felt it was a bad idea. I didn't really, I wasn't a Todd Reardon fan. I didn't really know much about him, but from what we've seen in this sample size, he has some developing to do. But what do you expect when it's his first time head coaching job? I mean, Trotz got the way he is because he has 19 years down in Nashville, one of the longest tenured coaches around. So I mean, he's going to have to learn. But unfortunately, with the window that this team has, could they have waited and re-signed Trotz and then kept? Well, we spoke about that last week with the little rift that they had. They were, so I don't.
Yeah, they probably couldn't have kept both, right? So I mean, I think that's very much an issue. And 2 years into Trotz's tenure, we wanted to run him out of town too. It took him a couple of years in the system, but the big thing.
I didn't.
Right, you didn't, but a lot of people did, right? A lot of some of the people that are still.
There was a lot of negativity.
Oh, no doubt.
And as you were saying, it took him years to get to that place. My problem is Ovechkin under new coaches have not particularly played great. The only time he got to the promised land was with a veteran coach. So it makes me wonder if he had like a Peter Laviolette or something like that, someone who has experience, who's been to the cup before, who's a disciplined, hard-nosed coach who can get fiery. I think that's part of my problem with Todd Reardon. I just don't think he gets fiery enough for me. Like, I want my coach to have a little bit more passion, I guess. And I don't say not all the time. You got to be even keeled on the bench. You can't be like blowing up every 3 minutes, although Tortorella does it, right? And he seems, right. But
Torts.
Yeah, but for me, like, I would like a more veteran coach. Maybe this coach would be great in 5 or 6 years, but I don't know if we have the window to see that through.
Yeah, I definitely see your point, because it was a head scratcher to me. I'm like, how do you not re-sign the guy that just took you to the promised land? I mean, at least 2-year contract, a year contract.
He wanted more time and for more money. The total was just too much for them. It was
But
$5 million for each year for 5 years or something like that. It was a lot.
If he's proven that he can take your team to the next level, and if once they bought in, it was like they were playing chess and everybody else was playing checkers. It was like it was crazy. I mean,
but he took 18 years to get a cup. So, and that is what I am going to be, like I said to Carol Robbie before you came on, that I'm probably going to be the black sheep in this conversation tonight. And I'm okay with that, because I'm not going to say that Todd Reardon has done everything perfectly, because there are some frustrating things. And I do understand that whole, the passion behind the bench. You want to see more. We don't know what goes on in the locker room. Maybe he rips into them and we just don't know. It doesn't really seem like his personality, but like, we don't need a torts either. Like, I can't stand coaches like that. But I feel like everyone on social media all of a sudden is like the biggest Barry Trotz fan. And I want to kind of go back to like 2017, 2018 season where people were like throwing him under the bus and doing all the shit. And then all of a sudden Stanley Cup, and it's like, woo, we're all Barry Trotz fans. And that's what's coming out right now. It's like, give me an effing break. It's like, people are terrible.
Yeah, they was probably throwing out all types of memes and
oh, it's awful.
Even now, he's their most favorite coach in the NHL history now. So
please.
How fans are. I mean, it to me, we know it was business. I just think it was a bad business decision, and we're seeing the ripple effects. And kind of that this is Trotz and Varley, basically chilling right now, roasting it like, we about to sweep these fools. They should have kept us. Varley probably said that, even though he had charges, he had to get out of town. Yeah, it's just ironic that we're seeing what Trott's team can do to a team in the playoff. With the Capitals were playing well, won a division, scoring, playing solid. Not the best hockey when everything wrapped up, but they were still playing solid hockey. But it's just you see what good coaching and solid game plan does, and unfortunately, Reardon is looking like Jay Gruden a little bit right now.
But my biggest issue is the playbook is known, right? He was supposed to just take the playbook that won us the Cup in 2018, slight tweaks, and keep it rolling, right? Well, Trotz wrote that playbook, so that's not going to work against Trotz. So he has to do something different. And through 3 games, I haven't seen anything drastically different. I think he's rolled lines a couple of times. He's done a couple of things here and there. But, why not put in some of these young players? If this is probably a sunk season at this rate, may as well put some, of these young guys that were doing amazing things in Hershey, get them some playoff experience, and just see what happens. I've seen some young studs go in the game and do something. I don't know. I want to see something different structurally. There's fundamentally everything seems the same, and Trotz knows the playbook, and he's just waiting for it.
But here's where I see differently on that. Carol, I'm so sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Is that I feel like, okay, so these players that played under Trotz, yes, and we have the Ovechkins, the Wilsons, the Braun, we have these players, the vet players, the Oshies and Backstroms and Kuzis. So they, as people, they haven't changed. And so their skill, their drive, their, desire to win the cup shouldn't be determined on whether or not Barry Trotz is standing behind them or Todd Reardon, because Todd Reardon was there as the assistant coach. It's not like he's some stranger to the team. So I put more on the players than I do the coach, because I feel like for the amount of money that you're getting, the amount of experience that you have on ice, the amount of minutes that you're having, everything, like this is your life. Like this is your job. You can't put the blame on the coach to say, oh, well, he told me to do this rather than this. Bullshit. Like, exactly. Sorry.
You're fine.
Thinking of my other podcast.
Coaching also, just like Robbie mentioned, Trotz knows this team from being here. He knows their setup. So you can have that game plan going against other folks, but this is why I mentioned the Jay Gruden factor. You have to know how to make adjustments and add wrinkles to when stuff isn't working. You just can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. hoping that things are going to change. When you see that your team is getting outplayed or out strategized, that's when it's your job to step up and give them a better game plan or a different game plan that they can try to go out there and execute to try to be successful when you're getting outplayed and outcoached. Now, I'm not saying it's all on him. The players go out there and do their thing, and that's why I say I feel like the players have been playing well. It's just been, they've taken 5 or 10 minutes off, and Islanders have jumped on them when they did. So, I
Right.
mean, coaching has to go into it because you have to make adjustments when you see something isn't working. Crossing your fingers and hoping something will go your way just doesn't fly as a coach. And that's what I think he's missing. See, Trotz has all that experience. So he's been through basically every scenario that you can even possibly imagine probably. So when he runs into a situation, he has a playbook he can go to. Todd Reardon's playbook isn't that big because it's only been a season and, barely 2 seasons. So
Right.
it's he's in a bad position because I feel like he doesn't have the tools in his coaching repertoire to add any wrinkles to this team because, as you said, they've been together so long. They've run so many different offenses under different coaches and doing different things. I mean, what really can you do to change that up? So it's like he's kind of handicapped because of the experience and the talent of this team. Because it's like, what else can I do to try to add a wrinkle or something that other coaches haven't seen already? So he's in a tough situation. I'm not going to all blame it all on him, but that's where your coach has to step up. Is basically what I'm saying.
But my big problem is coaches also have to kind of be a therapist to these players, right? It's all about trying to psych them up and get them in the right headspace to win the game, right? So for me, he's not getting them in the right headspace. I mean, the fact that too many men on the ice, they're not jumping on and off at the right time. Those are simple, correctable mistakes, and for me, that's on coaching, right? I mean, stick penalties on the player for sure. Bench
Mm-hmm.
minors is a problem with the coaching, and it's a significant one because those two penalties could have cost them drastically. And then the other problem I have is Verona right now is just shook, right? He just looks like he's, his head is just not in the right space. But it's
Right.
the coach's job to get somebody talking to him, get him into a better place. I mean, he keeps benching him and he keeps on, in my mind, putting him into a worse headspace. And I understand you don't want to give him more minutes if he's not being productive. But the reality is, if he's your second line guy, you got to make him more productive, not limit his minutes, right? I mean, it can't
But
be.
we don't know what Todd's done. Like, and so there, at some point, you can talk to the players, the Holt beats, the ones that get in that terrible mind space, and sometimes you can talk to them till your face is blue, and it's going to come down to the player. If there's something
Right.
personal or there's something that's blocking them, there's only so much a coach can do, and I don't feel like Todd Reardon, like, I feel like he truly cares about these boys. I mean, I really do. I don't think that and I think he cares about this game tomorrow. I mean, I've seen him interviewed, and then it's a lot of stress on him, of course, but I think that he knows top priority is the health and just the wellness of the team. And then wanting to come, then say, okay, like, let's do this and let's all come together as one. It's so hard. Like, we don't know what's going on in Frana. Like, this is the worst I've ever seen him. And I am a huge number 13 fan.
No, I know. I know.
Right. Remember, this is happening
Heartbreaking.
on this team. When remember Kuzi. Kuzi had a great postseason. And then what was it, 2016? He, stunk up the place.
Yeah.
Then he came back 2018 and had this postseason that he had. So I guess, with the youth, because, we always made the comparison, Bobby and myself going on back and forth about Andre Burakovsky and Brana. He was hitting his stride. I guess we've got used to him, rising to the occasion. But we still remember he's still young. And like you said, second line player, hockey playoffs, we had the long break. He's a young guy, so routine is key for athletes. So I think that might be playing more into it. Is that he's not comfortable out there. And like I said, we saw the same thing with Kuzi, but we saw how Kuzi turned it on when it was time to do it, and they got the ultimate goal. So I mean, in the seasons he's been here, like I said, this is the worst that we've seen him playing. So I'm not really too hard on. Like I said, this whole COVID thing just threw everything out of whack. So I'm not really too down on the team because even though, like I said, everybody else has to deal with it too, but everybody isn't built the same. And, this is
Right.
something for a new coach that, a coach that's trying to find his way with a team with a mix of veterans, new players, and youth that, maybe this is just a little bit too much for him to handle in this second season with the pandemic thing. I mean, that's just the way I look at it, being an ex-coach, that it's not always he sucks or he needs to do this
Mm,
better. Sometimes it's
right.
outside influences that plays a role in what's going on.
And I think that we really have to kind of take, and this is going to come as this total teacher therapist side of me, so I apologize, but you do have to step back and say, okay, the mental health of people who are in a quote unquote bubble. What we see on TV is, oh, they're playing ping pong and they're playing poker and they have these great meals, but the bottom line is they're also very isolated, and that can take a toll on your mental health. That is something to consider. And I know there are a ton of people on social media who are like, don't care, suck it up, this is what you get paid for, I don't give a shit, blah blah blah. I feel differently. I feel like if you want your players to be in a healthy mindset, and if I think 2020, I don't want to say it's an excuse, but it is something that 100% has to be considered about,
Yeah.
going forward.
It's tough because I go back and forth. Part of me says, hey, don't fire the coach after this, even if we get swept. But part of me is like, am I seeing a coach in a situation that I think is going to get significantly better to the point where we're going to win a cup in the near future or not? Because I just don't think this window, as I mentioned before, is that large with the current team. I think you're going to have to move some pieces. I mean, Holtby's already gone after this year. So, I mean, that's going to be a big, I saw a statistic that the Capitals are the only team that started before 1998 that has all of the following on their current team: top points, top goals, top assists, top defensive points, and best goalie, and goals against average. And we have all of them on that team. And, with Holtby gone, we won't anymore. But, as long as we've got Nick and Ovi and Kuzi and TJ, and hopefully Tom, Wilson, and, hopefully Verana, picks his game back up. I mean, we've got a good core. I just, we can't wait 5 or 6 years for it. We got to win one in the next couple.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, Reardon is kind of handicapped because, with all this talent and all that they've done together for being so long and having all of those franchise leaders on the team, it's like, what can you really do that another team hasn't seen, that they don't know how to defend properly, So it's like, we've seen what this team can do. Like we saw with Trotz, their offense came from their defense. It wasn't a lot of plays being ran. It wasn't a lot of cycle game. It wasn't a lot of, stuff that they do. They were getting odd man rushes because their defense led to transition. And with the skill and the talent that they have, they would, be off to the races. And they, NHL goalie against Ovi on the right wing, we know what's going to happen. So it's just, I think in the cup run and last year, we saw more of, they were scoring 5-on-5, but it didn't break down the fact that most of, I ain't gonna say most of it, but a lot of it was attributed because of the defense and because of the offensive skill. Their transition game is so key and so vital and so good that when a team made a mistake, they were able to jump on top of them. Now with Reardon, I don't think his defensive strategy or defensive game plans are as solid as with under Trotz, just because of the experience factor. And that's where was it Blake, the other bald head dude? I can't remember his name. I was gonna
Forsyth.
Yeah,
Forsyth.
That's why I thought having him there would be good. I think he does defense. I'm not sure if he does special teams or defense, but I thought at least keeping him there, that was a Trott's disciple, that would help in the transition with the defense. But I don't think it is translated. So that's why I say I don't know if it's fully him. He might need a stronger assistant, to help him make that next leap to being a better coach, because he's not getting the proper.
Well, they're getting rid of Cashman, so.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's just, I don't know. I just don't feel the energy and the passion that I like from some of the other coaches. The reason I like a Peter Laviolette is like he's been there before. He's dealt with the big name NHL players as a head coach, with the Flyers, and
he's a smug son of a bitch, though.
Yeah, I know. I want that though. I want to smoke son of a bitch, right? Like, I would be okay with Torts was our coach. I want the fire. I want something. He's so blasé. Like, we'll do better next time. I'm like, I hope so. Like, I don't know. Like,
the stomach Torts as the Capitals coach. He postures so much. That's one thing. I don't mind cocky, but I hate arrogant. It's a thin line.
Absolutely.
The fact that he's still riding that cup from the Rangers, come on.
They didn't win a cup.
I thought he won it when Messier was there. I thought he was the one that was a coach there.
I don't think so. I thought that? Oh, maybe. No, I don't. Has he been a coach that long?
Or did he get it in Tampa? Was it Tampa?
I think it was in Tampa. He got it in Tampa. Yeah.
But he got one. You know what I'm saying? So. That's why I feel like he gets a pass. He's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that his attitude should reflect his hockey record. To me, he's not that great of a coach, honestly. He's a fire plug, and he can get his guys, going and get them motivated to play. But as a strategy coach, I really don't even call
Exactly, and I feel like we talk about him because of his antics on how he is behind the players and his just kind of going crazy. And I think that it's apples and oranges when it comes to Torts and Todd Reardon. It's like, you have a former, I don't know that Torts' history, but I know Reardon was a player and he has been the assistant coach. And that's kind of, I guess, maybe why I always come to his defense is because I felt like he was an assistant coach. It's big shoes to fill. Like, you're an assistant coach to go into the head coach. And I'm not saying that we have to give him a grace period of anything, but I definitely don't think that we need to say, hey, listen, you had a year and then your second year's with COVID and bye, like, we're going to bring in somebody else.
Yeah.
I think that things will change. Maybe just bring, once Cashman's gone, maybe somebody else will come in. Maybe Brooks Orpik will come in and all of a sudden things will kind of mesh that way. Who knows?
I wondered because I remember didn't they sign him to be a coach or something somewhere?
Well, he is. He's in development. But the thing is, to get to the NHL coaching level, you need to do some stuff first. You can't just suddenly I'm the best assistant coach you'd ever had, right? It's a little.
We call Brooks up, see what he can do for the defense.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's it. All the people on social media yesterday, I'm like, as much as I love Alan May, they're like, make him the head coach.
Yeah, make Alan May the head coach. I was like, all he would do is shoot pucks at the feet of the goalie, which might work, but that also can't be the only thing you do. Anyway, but Brian Bingham said that Tom Wilson wants to live up to his reputation too much. I thought that's interesting.
I disagree.
I definitely don't agree with that. Reputation that he has is unwarranted as a so-called goon or whatever. He's an offensively talented player. That's a freak of nature. That's a power forward like they haven't that this generation of hockey hasn't seen. He's like Eric Lindros with more offensive skill. The dude is like a linebacker on ice. So yeah, when he's going and he's skating and he's seeing what's going on from being coached properly, he's gonna lay the wood to you. Now, has there been some questionable hits in his past? Yes, we can't discount that. And we know about first impressions, we know about reputations, but for the most part, that man has played clean hockey. It's not his fault that he's bigger than everybody else and they scared to get hit by. Get out the league, put a cup on, and put on some panties. But he's not a dirty player. That narrative really gets on my nerves about him. And I've heard plenty of analysts say that you love him when he's on your team, but you hate him when you go against him. And that's the part of it is hate going against him.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a lot like the Rat, right? With Brad Marchand. Everyone says he's like one of the best players.
He's a pest. I'm sorry.
Right, exactly. But it's so funny that it's one or the other. No one likes both of them. If you like Brad Marchand, you hate Tom Wilson. Yeah. And if you hate Tom Wilson, you love Brad Marchand. I see it time and time again.
It is, yeah. And I will say, having to watch the Boston Carolina series, the fact that I pulling for Boston kills me because Marchand, I want to pull for other players because Cole's great, but when it comes down to Marchand, he gets under my skin. But I will say with Tommy, sorry.
He looks like a rat and he is a rat. He is.
Dirty play. He does. Even if you just see his picture.
Yeah. He he's a dirty dude. Like he does stuff when the ref isn't looking, and that's why they get the retaliatory penalties because he does stuff that, like what you say, right? He licked somebody's face
Oh,
or something.
gross.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. They like if he was in jail, he would have got shanked for that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do that. That's just
Yeah, Tom Wilson's never done that. I like to
No.
remind people of that. So the other thing that Brian was bringing up was goaltending. Big issue. I actually think Holtby's played without game one, taking game one aside. I didn't think he played really good in game one. Game two, I thought he played really well. I mean, he was pulled at the end, so some of those goals weren't really even his fault, right?
Right.
Game three, I thought he played fantastic. That's a great power move into the center of the ice, you know, an open net where it's a wraparound that probably gets most goalies, right? So for me, I thought he had a bad first game, a pretty decent second and third. Could maybe some other goalies stolen a game? Could he have stolen a game? Sure. But, you know, that third game was about as close as you can get.
You got to go back to what I just talked about, the transition game. The Capitals have been turning the puck over and Islanders have getting odd man rushes. Holtby is a good goalie, and he stops most of them. But when you're getting these turnovers or these deflections, and they're 20 feet, 30 feet away with clear shots, I mean, it's not really much more you can do. Like I said, it's been, the puck hasn't been going away, haven't been getting the bounces, and the Islanders have been. They've been getting the clips off the stick or off the skate or off the boot or off the boards. They've been getting those. We saw the Capitals, their first goal with TJ Oshie. He got the bounce off the boards in the first game. But other than that, I haven't really seen any pucks bouncing the Caps' way, even if it's hustle or just luck of the draw or whatever. Just the Islanders are playing, they're playing at a different level right now. And you got to take your hat off to them. You can't just say that our team sucks, that's the Sidney Crosby syndrome. I'm never going to be that way. I always want to say that our team just sucked the night the other team wasn't good. Don't give them credit. The Islanders are playing solid hockey, and the Capitals, unfortunately, are being outplayed in their own style of hockey because the coach that took them there is coaching another team. And I think that's the true X factor of it. Not saying it is Reardon's fault. It's just that Trotz is that good of a coach.
Yeah, he said that 3 was better, 1 and 2, nope. I thought 2 was better, too. I really thought he had a good game in game 2. And it was one of those games that Ovechkin scores late in that game, with it on his stick on a power play. That game is very, very different, and he doesn't get that goal, and it falls by the wayside. And, talking about breakaways, I mean, Verana's killing me. He's had 3 breakaways and no goals. Like, we just haven't had that many opportunities at breakaways. And he got to convert one of them. If he converts any one of those 3, we win at least one game, right?
Exactly.
So we converts 2, we might win 2. I just.
And I absolutely hate the fact that I have to say my number 13 is just like kind of on my list because I'm so frustrated. But I'm frustrated for him because he's obviously in a negative headspace. I will give him that. But you know what? It's like he is. Come on, like what we've witnessed, what he did yesterday, it was like, how did you miss that? Like, this is insane. I mean, I don't know.
It happened just like in the game before when Ovi was had the net wide open and he missed it. That normally never happens, but it happens. So I mean, I'm not going to be too tough on him because this kid, since he came up, he's pretty much spoiled.
It's been amazing.
Talent. Yeah, he spoiled us with his talent. So now that he's going through a little lull, the first in my opinion in his career, I think folks should just been a little. Remember, he's a young kid that's trying to find his way and with a difficult situation. Breakaways, yeah. Normally we see him, with a move or with a nice slap shot. I mean, a nice wrist shot. But I mean, I just don't think that he's in sync right now. And benching him. Yeah. I mean. Really,
I don't necessarily want to bench him. My issue, I guess, it comes down to the fact that he's been great in regular seasons, but his playoff numbers aren't fantastic, and it's just he's got to make that next step. I mean, I'm just gonna say, if he becomes an elite player, he's got to make that step.
Oh yeah, I mean, to say that to try to make him elite already, I think that's a little premature. He's one of the he's a top. I can't even say top player in the league. He's a top prospect potentially in the league. If he continues to excel. I mean, the last 2 years, he's raised his career high in goals and points both years. So you see the development, you see the maturation. I just think this is another ripple effect of a new coach coming in. I think if he'd have been under Trotz would still been here. who knows where he could have been, because the consistency and hearing the same message and getting the same learning methods from the same coach is very key with these young athletes in any sport, not just hockey, basketball, football, baseball, whatever. So that might be a trickle down from Trotz not being there and helping him develop into the better player that we saw him becoming under Trotz.
Right.
But didn't he have like 25 points like going into the playoffs? Like he was fantastic and he was spot on. And then I understand that there was and that's just it. Is it a COVID break that some of these players, we just have to chalk it up to? That's what it was. Like the COVID break, they go home, they're, doing this for 4 months and all of a sudden they're back and they're in a bubble and they're isolated or whatever it is. However, this just seems really, really unlikely for Vrana, because I felt like what I liked about him was a very consistent player and he was very determined. And I'm not seeing that with him. I'm seeing kind of sloppy plays and kind of half-assed plays. And I'm not seeing the drive that we had seen prior to, say, COVID.
But I mean, a big part of it is Backstrom's not playing with him, right? I think Backstrom makes players look a lot better. And I think
calms them maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Update in the Colorado-Arizona game. Colorado was up 4-1. And the third is just started. So that was the second period when I gave the first update. So
they're insane.
Yeah.
They've just got a ton of talent. That team, the Avs are just gonna.
22 shots on goal, and Arizona has 9 in the third period. So they're playing some solid hockey.
All right. Well, I was just gonna.
I know you got one.
Right. So I think when you bring Nicholas Backstrom, back into the fold, hopefully he could play tomorrow. Because if not, we're sunk. I think we're getting swept. I'll just flat out say.
But I think he was practicing today with Black Aces, so I think
and he was practicing before the last one too. So who knows? So like I don't want to put too much into that just yet. But I feel like having him on that second line helps them out. It brings Eller down a line because maybe he could help Kovalchuk. And, there's just such a ripple effect down the line, the calming nature, having another good guy, in the center. Although Kuzi's done well at the dot. I've been very impressed by him, in this. He's been one of our best playoff, players from the faceoff point of view. Right. But having another one of those is very key, especially in late game scenarios. And, he's one of the big parts of your power play. And I feel like he's, without him, it's a difference maker. And I think you can do so many different things with your lines with him in it. You could put him back up with Ovechkin and TJ Oshie. You can make that super line again. And you could put Kuzi back down with Tom Wilson and Vrana, which would be a totally different look and could give him a spark. So there's a lot of things you could do with the top 6, with Backstrom in it, whether it's the traditional lineup or an alternate lineup. And you just don't have either of those options without him. And I think that it'll be a huge thing. Now, I know we only have about 20 minutes left of our hockey talk, and I wanted to, bring Brian Brennan in and talk about a couple of the other series real quickly. I don't think we need to break down all 3 of the games goal scoring. I think we've kind of
it's the first time we done. I think that was a good little session right there without going into all the goals and stuff. So we pretty much broke the series down. The scores. I had the scores up on my feed. Check it out. So
and they're done that.
Exactly. So sounds good. Well, we're gonna bring in Brian Brennan now. How you doing, Brian?
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Hi, Brian.
How's it going?
Good.
All right. So I'm just gonna bring up a couple of the different series real quickly. It's been a really interesting playoffs, down the line in the NHL. The Philadelphia-Montreal one, I'll just bring that one up fast, was a very back and forth. I mean, Philly looked like a dominant team that we all thought they were and being the number 1 team in the first game. The second game, Montreal just put a whooping on Philly. They went 5-0. It was kind of ugly. And I thought it was going to change.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was going to change the series, but then Philadelphia came back and did what I think they've only 3 times or something like that in franchise history have ever put up a 1-0 shutout in the playoffs. And that's just not how they win games. And they did. And so they're kind of back on top in that series again. I'll start with you, Brian. What are some of your thoughts on that one?
I mean, that result by Montreal, you said it was 6-0 right? I mean,
5-0.
5-0, excuse me. That's the type of stuff you can see in the playoffs. Anything can happen. The lowest seed team can get a 5-0 win like that. and just completely surprise you, and then you can bounce right back and get a 1-0 win. This is a really interesting series to me. I mean, it's two, Montreal kind of surprising Pittsburgh in the qualifying rounds. They're kind of a surprise team, and Philly's the 1 seed. This is definitely an interesting series. I picked Philly to win. I'm going to stick with that, but I'm surprised with Montreal's results so far and how physical and close the series has been. It's been a good one for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to go to you, Carol, next on your thoughts on it.
It's definitely interesting. I saw the 5, and I was actually watching the 5-0 game, and yeah, Montreal just looked like a different team. And I didn't see game 3. I didn't know that they lost 1-0.
It was a good game. It was a
good game.
Especially after getting beat 5-0. You knew Philly was going to come out with a better defensive mentality. And, they've been playing solid hockey. They've been one of the better teams. They're the number 1 seed, as you mentioned. So, I've been more concerned about the Capitals here, I'll be honest. I haven't been watching closely. The others, I've been watching them, but I haven't. I've been just taking notes on the Capitals and seeing what's been going on with them, because I don't like being wrong, and my prediction is about to come wrong tomorrow.
Yeah, I hope not. All right, Anna, what are your thoughts on it?
Well,
I'll let Carol do the score update first.
Score update.
Yeah.
The Nats were playing the Braves. We're going to get into our talk later, but the Nats are up 3-1, and I believe their rookie prospect just came up and hit a home run. I'll get back to that in the Nats talk, but I think that's my wire. But they're up 3-1 in the bottom of the second right now in Atlanta, and that was just all I have to say.
Beautiful. All right, Anna, what were your thoughts on that one?
Honestly, that Canadian Flyers game just made me that much more excited to watch the playoffs. It is that kind of determination of why each team is in the position that they're in, and you just don't know who's going to win. I think we all came into it like, holy crap, like the Flyers are going to take it, the Avalanche are going to take it, and you know what? We're not seeing that all across the board. There's no shutouts yet, so. In regards to, the other opposing teams do at least have a win. But I loved this one because I was like, oh, Flyers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was hoping the Flyers would lose, but it was a great game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to quickly just go through the West scores for this round, and then we're going to break down the 2 other East series just because we only have 15 minutes. I don't think we have time to break down all 8 series. But just so people know, Vegas is up 3-1 over Chicago. And that last game was an interesting one. Chicago was playing pretty well, but they ended up losing it. But, Vegas has played particularly well. They've gotten both goalies going. Colorado, Arizona, Carol says that Colorado is up, right, currently in this game?
5-1 now.
5-1 now. They're up 2-1 in that series over Arizona. They've looked really good. Burakovsky's looked good in goal. Burakovsky's good at scoring, and we've had Grubauer's good at goal. And then Dallas-Calgary, that is a crazy series. It's 2-2.
Yep.
Calgary
that game yesterday was great.
Yeah, that game was nuts. Calgary was going to win, and then Dallas scores, then the goal is taken away, then Dallas scores again, ties it up, goes to overtime, and Dallas ended up winning the game. It was a nuts, ties the series 2-2. And St. Louis is in some trouble against Vancouver. They're down 2-1 in their series. But let's break down the other couple of East series. We got 2 left to talk about. The first one we got to talk about is the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Columbus Blue Jackets. That first game was ridiculous. 5 overtimes, Lightning win it. One of the longest games in history. Just incredible. Then Columbus comes back and wins the next game, which I predicted. I was like, Columbus was too close to that game for them not to come back and win. I that series. So it was 1-1. And then Tampa Bay has won their last 2 games, but both by just 1 goal. So very close in all of these games for sure. But a great series so far. That series will continue Wednesday, August 19th at, I think it's a noon game on Wednesday, which is crazy. It seems really early. Anna, what are some of your thoughts on that series?
Yeah, this was that 5 overtime. I was tired for the players. I thought, holy crap, how are they even standing? And then the fact that the goalies, they're not going to take the goalies out, but hats off to them, their determination, their just their skill level is fantastic. And of course, when it comes to that, somebody has to lose, and you don't. Yeah, at that point, I was like, oh my God, just give these players, like, put them out of their misery already. But I think that this is a fun series to watch. And I don't know, like, we'll see, like you said, what Wednesday at noon or whatever time, how things how they play out. But it's a fun series to watch. But that 5 overtime was, oh my God.
I'm just so happy that I didn't have like a dog in that fight, because it was a great watch. It was like an entire afternoon, evening watch. It was so long, but it was fantastic. And I had friends that are huge Tampa Bay Lightning fans, and they were so nervous the whole time. I kind of felt for them. Like,
you're just like, whatever.
Yeah, and I got to enjoy it. Brian, what are some of your thoughts on that series?
Yeah, that game, the 5 overtime game, was crazy. I'm glad I watched most of it. Historic game, one of the longest games in the history of the league, and the goalie performances in particular by Columbus's goalie in that game. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I think he had 85 saves or something like that. Absolutely insane. Great performance by him. But this series, it's been back and forth really. Even though Tampa Bay has a 3-1 lead, I wouldn't rule Columbus out, honestly, just because the series has been that close. And if a couple breaks go Columbus's way, they could get back into this series. But yeah, this has definitely been a good, interesting series so far.
Yeah, it's Korpisalo. He had 85 saves in that game, and then he had 36 the next game, 31, and then followed up by 20. But still, like, just an incredible run of basically back-to-back days because of how long that game was.
Yeah.
To put up, what is that? It's 121 goals or something, just like or saves,
Saves.
Yeah, saves. Like, just really remarkable stuff. I'm happy he won at least one of those games, because I was just like, he put it out there. Carol, any thoughts on that series?
I mean, that first 5 overtime game, I've been there. I was a fan, if you don't recall. I think it was a 3 overtime game back in the late 80s, early 90s that my dad let me stay in and watch. So you're on the edge of your seat, not knowing what's going to happen. So I feel it's hard to watch those games because you're so emotionally involved, hoping, your team pulls it out, especially, forcing overtime in the Stanley Cup playoff. It was an amazing game to watch. And yeah, all of those saves, these goalies are amazing, man. The stuff that they can do, and the mental aspect of it, along with the physical aspect. You're getting peppered and you're exhausted, and trying to push it to the next level. And you got to attribute it to the players too. We were mentioning about the will in one of the players. On those intermissions, they going in like, eat, pound down protein and carbohydrate, energy back up to go out there and fight another 200-pound man on 200 feet of ice to try to score a little black puck into the net. So those dudes are dedicated, and to go right back out there the next game and for Columbus to be able to even the series. That that I guess you have to attribute that to Tortoretta's coaching also. But I mean, it's definitely an interesting series. I can't wait to see how it folds out after what's going on with the Caps.
Right. So the last series is one that's actually in 10 minutes. It's going to be returning to the airwaves. It's Carolina versus Boston. Boston beat Carolina in the first game. They lost to them in the second one, and they beat them in the third game. And again, the fourth game is starting at 8 o'clock, so just about 10 minutes. It's been a close series, back and forth. I kind of wish we had drawn Carolina, though, in some ways over just Trotz, just because I feel like he, the coaching, situation. But Carolina's feisty. I don't think they're out of this by any means. I'll go around the circle and see what we think of how this next game is going to go today. Anna, do you think they'll tie it up, or do you think that Boston will take a commanding 3-1 lead?
No, I definitely think they're going to tie it up. I think feisty is the perfect word to describe Carolina. They are also kind of the thorn in the side of whomever their opponent is, because you have players on that team, that the Ahos, the Williams, that just are always giving 100+% and just absolutely fantastic. When it comes down to Boston, I don't think that the whole Tuukka Rask thing is going to affect them at all, to be honest. they've got too many veteran players and too much skill on the ice to let that shadow, like to let that be a deterrent. But I don't think it's going to be a 5-0. I think it's going to be maybe like a 2-1, 3-2. I think it's going to be close. I think they're going to give up a fight, but I think that Carolina is just a pain in the ass. and yeah,
Agreed.
feisty. Yeah, feisty is we'll say that's a PC word to use.
Right. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the loss of Tuukka is going to affect the Bruins. It didn't seem to affect them very much in Game 3. They still won the game. And Halak is still a pretty good goalie. So, yeah. I mean, I think that they definitely have a chance to go far in the playoffs, even with Halak. But I think Carolina is going to win this game. I think the series is a 6 or 7 game type series. Like you guys said, they're very feisty. They're a very good team. I think they are going to give the Bruins a huge fight in this series. And, I think they'll probably get the win tonight.
Carol, what are your thoughts?
But Carolina, you can't count them out. I mean, Boston is a solid squad, veteran squad, but like you said, they're feisty, they're hungry, they're fast, they play solid defense. They got a quality coach behind them that gives them a good game plan. He knows what buttons to push, as we mentioned about. Don't think Reardon knows how to do that, but I think this thing might go 7, man. I can't count out Carolina until they're actually out. They have a factor that you can't put on paper until they get on the ice and until you see how the game is going to go. And then once they get momentum, and we see with the Islanders, when they get a lead, their defense is, like a stranglehold, and they take away time and space and then make it, an adventure for you trying to score. So I think this series is far from over.
Yeah. So one thing I want to jump back to is the Tuukka Rask thing just for a second, because I was reading some articles today and some more information has come out on that. And the first of all, regardless of what additional information came out, it's this guy's decision. He feels he's got a young family. If he feels he needs to go home, he should be able to go home. He shouldn't have to answer to anybody. And I'm really kind of frustrated at NHL fans across the board. It's not just Caps fans. Yep. I've read them in every message board. They were all trashing the guy. And I'm like, look, he's risking his life being out there for your entertainment, and you're going to be like, my hockey loving is more important than him spending time with his family. I just it's so selfish. And I put it in front of people that way, and they're like, you know what, you're right, and it's like, he has a newborn and 2 young daughters. Even if nothing more than that, he should be able, and if he feels it's been too hard on his wife and he needs to get back home, he thought he would try. And yes, I know the comments and the timing were suspect. And he said he didn't like the format, and then, maybe the rest of the team was like, we didn't like that you said that. And then he's like, you know what, I'm going to leave. Even if that was the way it happened, he still has the right to do that. But Absolutely. There's talk that there may have actually been some sort of family emergency that got cleared up. So it's not like it's a ongoing emergency, but he felt they had gone through something, and he's not saying what it is, and he wanted to be going back and helping support his family in the aftermath of whatever that was, even though luckily that person was okay, But I think that that's a fair reason to go home. It's not like it's none of our – and the fact that we all took our enjoyment, not us, because none of us think that, we're all in agreement he should be able to go home if he needs to go home. But there's so many fans out there that just put their own selfishness in front of this.
The key word, fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fans are there for their entertainment. They don't really take.
Not even their team, a lot of it,
Right. I think, Robbie and I think one of the things that triggered me yesterday, which, it happens quite often on social media with me, but was somebody was calling him weak. And I thought, screw you. You don't know what he's going through. He opted to do this. It's not like he all of a sudden is like, hey, I'm taking off the Bruins cap and I'm going to go play for, another team. It's like he's doing it for his family. And, we don't even have to question it. We don't have to question it, because if I opted to take a leave of absence at work, okay, then I'm going to take it for my own reasons, and the other teachers at my school don't need to be knowing my business. So let him be not a hockey player at the time. Let him just be a human being.
I'm impressed that anybody's done it. So going back to Lars Eller, the fact that he missed his child's birth, right? Just so that he could be able to get on the ice sooner for the Capitals.
Yeah.
But I would have never asked that of somebody. Like the fact that he did that is way above and beyond. And the thing is, people are like, oh, he went home. He must have been there for the birth. No, what he did was he went home so when he could take care of the house. And then when she came home with the baby, he got to spend a day, maybe 2 with the baby, and then left. But he didn't even go to the hospital because it would go from 4 days to 14. And he knew how important it was that he get back to the thing. But I'm like, that's some crazy dedication.
But also his family, like flying from Toronto to DC, like Eller did, is amazing. Tuukka Rask's family, we don't know if they're in Finland, if they're in Boston. So if he's got his wife and a newborn and 2 young kids in Finland, there's a huge gap there where you're really feeling, like.
And it sounds like it was a family issue for somebody else in the family too. And but again, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I just think that people shouldn't be selfish, and that's all I just wanted to put out there.
Yeah.
That like. This is so incredible that we're even having this opportunity to have sports in this time. My wife is convinced it's the stupidest thing she's ever heard that any of this is going on. And I don't necessarily blame her for that mentality because we're not allowed to do anything, right? We're all, I can't see any of you guys in person, other than this. Like, and if
you can do things. I mean, it's really. I'm glad we do have sports. I understand her sentiment that what's going on is really not that major, but technically it is because you would have a lot of more craziness going on right now if a lot of guys didn't have sports right now. So
people needed this.
Yeah, but absolutely.
With the whole fans being upset, fans are going to get upset about anything because they're fans of the team. They're fans of winning. They're not necessarily fans of human situations. But if you put them in that same situation, they'll do the same thing, but because of fandom, they don't see it that way because it's Stanley Cup playoffs and so much is on the line and their team this and their team that. So, anybody that's, with Lars Eller, it's a risky situation. Your wife's pregnant, you got young kids, she's about to have another baby, you never know what happens, who you interact with at the hotel on the way to the airport. That, you might bring something home. That's one of my fears when I was working at the I'm not even going to say that name on here, at a local essential place, and I was going to go visit my nieces and nephew. My nephew, I don't know why I say nephew, only got one, but I was they have asthma, so I was worried about maybe me taking something down there. So when I would get home, I check, call my sister the next couple of days, make sure ain't nobody develop nothing, because that's that fear, and that's just impassive. I'm using disinfectant, I'm wearing a mask, I'm wearing gloves, I'm using alcohol to clean everything down. But there's still that possibility. And the fact that they're willing, like you said, the dedication to play a game and, take that into account, risking their family's life along with theirs, it is dedication. I understand your wife's sentiment, but, as an ex-athlete, I understand their way of thinking.
No, I agree with both sides, and I've been so impressed with the NBA and the NHL to not have any positive cases and to do it right, and I think that's been an incredible thing. All right, I got one last question, and then we're going to switch gears out of hockey, but I just wanted to ask, is there any of the series that we've mentioned before that you think is drastically going to shift, as in one team is leading right now, but you think that there's definitely going to be a comeback a brewing, so I'll let each one of you guys give a thought on that. Carol, I'll start with you. Do you think that there's any series that you think, do you think Montreal's going to come back? Do you think something's going to be crazy in any of these series?
We're all hoping the Capitals can make a crazy turnaround. You know that, except for Brian, probably.
Well, I don't like the Islanders either, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot New York, so I just thought you was routed down with you.
No, not necessarily.
No, he doesn't like the Mets. He doesn't like the Jets. Doesn't like the Islanders. Yeah.
Good.
All right. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. But I'm guessing the one that possibly could swing, I guess, would be the Carolina series. Like I said, I don't think it's over. I think that they can, get a stranglehold on this series and take them and flip the momentum on it. I think that's the one that we have to watch. Like I said, we're all hoping the Capitals can do something, but I think that Carolina has the biggest shot of doing that.
Anna, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to say that I really am hoping for a Capitals fantastic situation. I don't know if it's going to happen, but if I have to pick another team, I'm going to go with the Canadiens. I would really like to see a team that people were like, who they're playing against. Like, this is they're a shoo-in, and I'd like to see them kind of rise above. And I think that they have the potential. So that would be my, underdog.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because they were down and out against Pittsburgh, down and out against Philly before they ever started. They were even said, why are they even in this, playoff series?
Yeah.
24th worst team. Wouldn't that be crazy if they won it all? I just that would have been like, that'd be so 2020, right? So team that wouldn't even make the playoffs before somehow squeaks in and makes a run. We've seen it in other sports, things like that happen. Wildcard teams, make big runs at it. So Brian, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, I know when you asked me about this earlier, Robbie, I said that I hadn't really seen the Western Conference, but I did see that Dallas-Calgary game yesterday, and I think the series might have shifted yesterday when Dallas tied the game with 11 seconds left and then won the game in overtime. I'm interested to see how the rest of that series goes. I think that'll be an interesting matchup for sure. Just to talk a little bit about the Western Conference, I think that's one of the best matchups for sure as well. And St. Louis might come back against Vancouver too. I wouldn't be surprised. They got a victory in double overtime last night, and they're still the defending champs. They've struggled so far in the bubble. I think that was actually their first win in the bubble, but I'll be interested to see. Yeah, I'll be interested to see how that goes as well. If the defending champs can make a little bit of a comeback here.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I think that we've covered the whole NHL playoffs. Next week, we're hoping to have a special guest. I will do a posting about if we're able to get him on. But I've been on his show. Oh, that would be exciting, right?
Yeah, believe me, I've been.
I'm still hoping.
It's Zoom, right? Anyone could do it. We could just get a cell phone
right?
somehow, right?
I mean, how hard is it? Come on.
I mean, it would be an off day next week, so. No. So I've been on this person's show a bunch, and I've been having a good time. So I'm hoping to have him. He's also a Rangers fan like this, Brian, and so we'll let everyone know a little bit more next week. He's planning on joining us, but I just we'll see how the Caps do and how the schedule looks and how we want to organize our show next week. But
so I'll be on from like 7 to 7:01.
Exactly. So if we get swept, it's not a long segment. We'll put it that way.
And thanks for your time.
Right. But we'll definitely talk about it for a little bit. So this is definitely not going to be the last episode with Anna Knox for sure. But hopefully we'll have a longer segment next week, and we'll talk about the greatest comeback in Washington Capitals history, because it would be that.
Yes.
It would be. There are only four times in history, I believe, has a team come back from being down 0-3, and there's a 98% chance that it does not happen. So.
But there's a 2% chance.
There is a chance, though, right?
And maybe they'll do it for Holtby.
Right, exactly. Hopefully he stands on his head.
Yeah.
I'm watching the Nats game. It was just a crazy play that happened. Nats had the bases loaded with the rookie Luis Garcia, who just hit his first MLB home run in his first at bat. Bases loaded, 1 out. He hits the ball sharply to third base, but the third baseman catches it and tags out the man on third to end the inning. That's up 4-2. He just walked. He walked previous at bat and walked in a run, which made it 4-2. And the Nats were looking to get some more damage done, but unfortunately, a double play to end that inning to give the Braves a sigh of relief as the Nats were about to bust this thing open. So before me shaking my head on the feed, that's why, because that play was just so crazy. I thought the Nats were about to score 2. And then they put out on a double play to end the inning. So, yeah, that kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Anna, I'm sure that you guys, I know you recorded an episode last night of Power Play.
We did.
And I bet it will probably be out before the game is tomorrow if I were to be a betting person.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and people can click out the Power Play Point podcast button on SportsOTHP.com. Check out all the previous episodes there. Anything else you want to let us know before we let you go today?
No, I'm, pulling positive Cap vibes tomorrow at 8. Let's hope that next week we have something good to say and we're not cursing the certain players or coaches.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Well, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for your
Sounds
time.
good. Thanks. Take care, guys.
All right.
All right. So, Carol, it's a busy baseball week that we've had this past week. I'll let you start by breaking it down, and then I'll talk about the week ahead. And we are bringing in Arun here, wearing the 76ers.
Nice.
I do like the throwback, and I do appreciate. I actually think I have that jersey.
Allen Iverson, rooting against the Celtics.
Right, there you go, Allen Iverson. So this segment, we're going to talk a little baseball, the week that was for the Nats. I have some thoughts on the week ahead for them. Then we'll jump in a little bit of Washington football news. I almost said it, but I didn't. And then we will end with a little bit of basketball talk for a very busy second hour here. But Carol, I'm going to mute myself and put the game on this TV. But I'll let you take it away and start breaking down the week that was.
All right, that's a bet. They the Nationals went 4-4, splitting with the Mets and splitting with the Orioles. They had a makeup game from the previous week that was suspended due to rain because they couldn't get the tarp out. We talked about that last week, the whole tarp debacle. But they've been playing better. We've been there sitting at 8-11, still in the bottom of the NL East, but 3 games in the 500 is not too bad. You can't dig out from that. Pitching, in my opinion, has been the biggest issue. Bullpen and starters. Doolittle's on the IL now. Strasburg is on the IL now with carpal tunnel, something in his throwing hand. Doolittle's on there. Castro has a broken wrist. He's out. So they're having some injury issues along with the new lineup with Kai Boom coming in there. Like I mentioned, the whole infield looks totally different. So I'm still trying to figure out who's playing what base because they move a lot of folks around. So it's still a work in progress. We talked about opting out. Ryan Zimmerman opted out. Rendon's gone. Soto's coming on after he was, his diagnosis. Now he's 10 games. Well, this be 11 games now. And I actually did a video of his 6 home runs and 14 RBIs that he's had already. This dude is playing some solid ball. So they're trying to get things going in the right direction. But let's go ahead and break down these games from last week real quick. I guess I'll just go ahead and do the 4 and we'll just break down the series since it's 2-2. First game of the series, Nationals won 16-4. We mentioned how Patrick Corbin was being one of the steadier pitchers, starters that they've come back with this year. That put him at 2-0, had 5 hits, 2 runs, giving up 2 runs, 1 earned with 4 strikeouts and 2 walks. Asdrubal Cabrera, he's been playing some solid baseball. He is putting up good numbers. I never did like when we got rid of him before. I felt like they should have kept him when we had him the first time around. But hey, he helped us win the World Series. So I'm glad he's still here. Next game was a 2-1 win by the Nationals. Max Scherzer took the mound. He won that game. That put him at 1-1. He went 6 innings, giving up 6 hits, 1 earned run with 7 strikeouts. Daniel Hudson earned the save, going 1 inning, giving up no hits, no earned runs with 2 strikeouts. And the big story of this game was, big story of the game, Trey Turner with his franchise record 10th leadoff home run helped power the Nationals in this win. They won 2-1. He had a solo home run on the second pitch of the game. That has him number 1 in Nats franchise history. Number 2 is now Brian, your ex-New York guy, Soriano. He had 9. And now Trey Turner leads the franchise with all-time leading leadoff home runs, which was cool. I'm a big Trey Turner fan. Game 3 was a 11-6 loss by the Nationals. Anibal Sanchez, he's had a rough go of it. If you recall last year, at the beginning of the season, I believe he started out 0-5. He just wasn't pitching like himself. He ended up going to the injured list, and about how he had a nice turnaround and the outstanding job he did in the postseason. But he only lasted 2 1/3, giving up 6 hits, 5 earned runs with 2 strikeouts and 2 walks. Juan Soto was it's just a beast in this game. I'm not even going to break down the numbers and everything. I'm going to talk and wrap it up. I love this kid. He's young. He's talented. He's playing ball the right way. He doesn't do anything. He's not arrogant. He's just a prototypical player you want on your team, in my opinion. And I get your guys' opinion about that when I finish up this last game that ended up even in the series, the Mets winning 11-6. Um, hold up, whoa. I messed up. I don't know. Live show, you know how that happens. I'm sorry. Last game of the series, the 8-2 loss at the same game again. My bad. Austin Voth came in the game, started the game, ended up going 4 innings, giving them 6 hits, 3 earned runs with 2 strikeouts. Um, Final score is 8-2. They split the series 2-2 versus the Mets. Arun, I get your take on this series and on Juan Soto on his hot start with only 10 games under his belt and already 6 home runs and 14 RBIs.
Yeah, it's good that the Nats got 2 early wins in this series. Scherzer, he was able to come back from that hamstring injury, and even though he said he tired himself out throwing that fastball, he said that it actually helped set up his changeup, which was more effective. And yes, Soto was hitting a lot of deep balls in this one and this series, and it was pretty incredible. And the umpires were made some weird calls in this series. I think this was a series where Strasburg was thrown out randomly.
Hands.
And yes, Sanchez, yeah, he struggled, and it'll be interesting. Even though Soto hit 2 home runs in one game, still wasn't enough. And like, it was nice to get the first 2 wins, but would have been nice to win this series against the Nets. But unfortunately, the Nets starting pitching the last 2 games wasn't really that good.
Fortunately, it's been the trend with the pitching's been inconsistent and don't know what to expect. And then when they have pitched well, the bullpen finds a way to get a lead back or give up a home run and get the momentum to the other team. Brian, what is your take on this split against the Mets and Mr. Juan Soto?
Yeah, winning the first 2 games was good for the Nationals. I thought the way the offense showed out in Game 1, putting up 16 runs, as Asdrubal Cabrera especially having the big day, and then the next day you get the leadoff home run, and then you just ride the back of Max Scherzer, one of the best in the game, to give you the 2 wins. And yeah, like you said, Juan Soto was great, even in the games the Nationals lost. That game that they lost, I think you said 11-6. Soto hit a mammoth home run to put them up 3-0 early in that game. Unfortunately, they weren't able to hold the lead, but it was like a 468-foot home run. And wow, I mean, the power this kid shows is just absolutely unbelievable. A star in the making for sure. But, obviously the Nationals have to be a little frustrated losing the next 2 games as well, especially that first game where they had the lead. And then the second game or the fourth game of the series, giving up 2 home runs to a scrub like Thomas Nito isn't good either. So it's not a good performance in those last 2 games, but definitely positives you can take away from the first 2 for sure.
No doubt, yeah. I would have loved to win that series too, winning 3 out of 4. I mean, at least they didn't, lose the series 1-3. So right now, like I said, 8-11 can't be too upset. 3 games under 500. Plenty of time left. It's now 4-3 versus the Braves in the bottom of the third. The Braves just got another run across. I think it was an RBI double. Not sure by who, but it's 1 out, 2 on, man on first and third. Well, first and third with 1 out, bottom of the third. And Sanchez is on the mound, who we've just been talking about. We mentioned Juan Soto got the 3-run home run. And then in the bottom of the inning, Sanchez gave up 4 earned runs in the bottom of the inning. So when I saw that, I was like, this isn't going to turn out too well. But yeah, Soto, that's my man. I love the way he plays the game. And I go back to when, Bryce went to Philly and everybody was all up in arms and, cussing and fussing. I was like, I'm not really concerned because we got Juan Soto. Juan Soto, I feel like he saw the potential when he got out there as a rookie, and I didn't see nothing stopping him. I mean, we saw the same thing with Bryce when he got on the field, but when he had all that hype behind him, it's like it was going to be hard for him to live up to the hype that was, put behind him. With Juan Soto, he's basically, somebody that came out of nowhere, Dominican Republic, quiet signing when he was, 17, matured, got in the league at 19 and, tearing it up right now. So his upside is just amazing, but his talent and his demeanor and his personality, you can't help but to love this kid, man. He's just, a phenomenal player and look like a human being. I haven't, got to look into much to him because I don't speak any other language but English, but I got to work on it. But
yeah, it was a single, by the way, that scored. Dansby Swanson scored. Freddie Freeman a third. So for that last play.
I thought he was supposed to retire, man. I'm tired of Freddie Freeman killing the Nets. Man.
Yeah, so there's runners at the corners with one out, and it's a 2-2 count, I believe. So
we can get out this inning. Get out with a double play ball. Low.
Yeah.
I'm not going to count. I'm not going to cross my fingers. Let's go ahead and get into this Orioles series, who have been surprisingly playing some good baseball. We've always, I'm not going to say we. I've always trashed the Orioles and being sorry and sucking, but they've been playing some good baseball, and they've been, played the Nats a few times, and they've been pretty impressive. So I can't even.
They're losing to the Blue Jays right now, though. So going back to the
Blue Jays put it on the Nationals too. So those guys got offensive power and offensive scoring power. So it's crazy. But the Nationals actually split because it was, as I mentioned, it was a makeup game from suspended game with the tarp malfunction. That game they ended up losing 6-2. Strasburg took the loss. He was a pitcher of record. He went 4 1/3, given 7 hits, 5 earned runs, and 2 strikeouts. Castro went 1 for 3 that game with 2 RBIs. It's just been because like Strasburg giving up 5. I didn't, see that coming. But it was in the bottom of the 5th. I mean, going into the 4th, that's when he got pulled after he gave up the 5. And looked like Sanchez just walked the bases loaded with the Braves. 1 out, bases loaded, bottom of the 3rd. It's just been inconsistencies and, pitchers not being on, not being effective, or they've been effective and not to mention the bullpen. So, I mean, it was a makeup game. They were already down, I think, 5-1 when the game was started back up. So it was a long shot for them to come back, but it'd have been nice. And then the next game was a 15-3 Nationals win, which was actually the second game of that day. Eric Fetty, he earned the win, which put him at 1-1. He went 5 1/3, giving up 2 hits, no earned runs with 3 walks. Strasburg left after 2/3 of an inning. I believe that's when they put him on the injured list with carpal tunnel or something or other. In his throwing hand, Juan Soto went 2 for 5 in that game. Two walks with 3 runs scored. We've seen the Nats bust out with offensive games like this. It was good to see. I was hoping it would translate to the following game, but unfortunately, it did not because the Nats ended up losing that game 7-3. Patrick Corbin, this was his first start that he wasn't as effective as his previous ones. He took the loss, puts him at 2-1. He went 5 innings, giving up 8 hits, 5 earned runs with 2 strikeouts. I didn't really get a chance to check out this game too much. I was doing something else. But like I said, we talked about the pitching, and Corbin was the bright spot. He had been the most consistent throughout the start of this shortened season, no injuries, and was coming out killing it. Unfortunately, he had a hiccup. Can't really be too mad at that. And then to wrap up the series, the Nationals won the game 6-5 with Max Scherzer taking the mound. He went a strong 7, giving up 8 hits, 5 earned runs with 10 strikeouts and 1 walk. Daniel Hudson got the save. That was his 4th save of the season. Another clean inning, going 1 inning, no hits, no earned runs with 2 strikeouts. Carter Kaiboom had a decent game at the plate. I'm still questioning about his fielding. Like I said, I've seen him more at second than at third. He was supposed to be the person to take over for Rendon after he departed. So, like I said, the infield is a daily question mark now with Castro out. They brought up Luis Garcia. I'm not sure the distance he plays. I think he's infield also. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. Brian, let's get your take on this 4-game series against the Orioles. Since you AL East, I believe they're still in second. What did you take from this series, and what do you get your take on? What do you think of their chance of keeping up with the Yankees?
I actually saw a good amount of this series, and it was good for the Nationals to get revenge on basically what happened last weekend at Nationals Park. That first game where they put up a lot of the offense, scoring 15 runs was good, but it obviously was a painful day. First with Castro getting hurt, and then you had Strasburg, of course, the big injury as well. So that was a frustrating day, even though they scored 15 runs. And then, the game on Saturday, the Orioles just came out swinging against Corbin, and it was never really in question from the start. Honestly, the Nationals kind of were in trouble from the start, even though Corbin's been their most consistent pitcher. And then on Sunday, it started out great for the Nationals. They had, I believe, a 5-1 lead in that game, and they ended up blowing it to the Orioles. The Orioles came back against Scherzer, but Scherzer actually still got the win because he was in through the 7th inning, and the Nationals scored the winning run in the top of the 8th inning when the Orioles made an error with 2 outs, which is just something you cannot do. That's something I think that's probably the inexperience and just mistakes by the Orioles. I think it's something that's probably going to cost them as the season goes on. But they've definitely shown some fight. Anthony Santander is actually one of the league leaders in RBIs, which is really surprising from an Oriole. But there's still definitely some question marks about the Orioles. I don't know how long it's going to last for them. It's just, especially because Tampa Bay is in the Division II and playing red hot right now. So I don't know about the Orioles, but good for the Nationals to get a measure of revenge from last weekend at Nationals Park.
Yes, it was. Jerome, what is your take on this series against our Beltway counterparts?
The Orioles bats are really strong, I guess, like just watching the series and been watching just a lot of them this year. They actually have hit pretty well off of even let me just say this, is they've hit pretty well off of Strasburg, Corbin, Glasnow, Wheeler, Jared Cole. They have a 6.82 ERA against Baltimore. Those great pitchers. And it was good to get the win. The first, I guess I don't really count that Tarp game as the first game because it was just kind of I felt like they were going to lose that game. And then even though Strasburg got injured, and Castro, they both got into the IL. Still it was a good win, but obviously those guys were really, especially Castro, he was playing really well. Key Boom, I guess they're slotting him in practice in a different position, but he's not batting as effectively. But the Nats rolled out a new lineup on Sunday, which I'm excited for. Soto at number 2, Cabrera at number 3, and Suzuki at number 4. They got the 2 rallies going. They got 5 of those runs going. Scherzer was pretty good in the Sunday game. I think he got 9 of the first 10 guys out. One of them was a solo home run, but as Brian said, he kind of deteriorated a bit. But luckily, the Nats scored on that error, and Rainey had 3 strikeouts in the 8th, and Hudson closed it out. So overall, it was a pretty good. And at this point of the season, they were at the similar point. It was 19-31, and they had almost exactly the identical winning percentage at that point of the year with this much going forward. That's what Nats Twitter was saying. We'll see if they can repeat those results again.
Yeah. So Annabelle Sanchez was able to get out of the inning with no more runs, giving them the bases loaded. Got a soft pop up to the center field to get him out of that bases loaded jam. So
I think that the previous out though was more exciting. The strikeout, I think that was key. It gave him some motivation, and to get that last out. So that was a good strikeout than a pop out, but it was a good end of the inning right there for sure.
Did you get a chance to check out any of this Orioles series, Robbie? You was caught up in hockey still. I know you.
Mostly hockey. I did watch little bits here and there. I definitely will watch a little more Nats once the Caps are out of it. But I was happy to see them play well. I mean, Baltimore had won 7 of 8, I believe, at one point. So the fact that they were able to get a couple of wins against them, I know it seems odd. You should think that the Nats, who are the defending champions, should easily beat an Orioles team, but it is not a typical season by any means so far. So, but I was happy that they were able to get it. And I'm going to pull up the schedule because I think it's a really interesting schedule upcoming. This Atlanta series and this Miami series. We're playing 3 games against Atlanta and then 5 games against Miami and then a bunch of games against Philadelphia. So it's a big chunk of games against division rivals, but predominantly this Atlanta and Miami team who are at the top of the division right now. If you're trying to gain ground on them, you got to take each of these series. So the first series is this one that's very close right now, 4-3. It's currently going on, but then there's a Tuesday game at 7:10 and a Wednesday game at 7:10. Then they play Miami, where it's reading as 2 home games, then a road game, and then 2 home games. At least according to here, I know they have to make up a couple of games, so I think that they might be one of those situations where they might be playing as the road team, or are they playing in Miami? No, they're playing here, right? But they might have to play one of those games as the road team. I assume they're not flying to Miami for one game. But or maybe all of them are in Miami and some of them, the Nats, are the home team. I don't know. It's been a weird season. Like, there's like a lot of this where they're trying to just get games in. But the first 2 are considered home games, a 6:05 on Friday and a 4:05 on Saturday. And there's another game on Saturday. That's the one where they're at Miami. So that's a 7:05 game. So I guess they'll switch who the home team is for the doubleheader. And then Sunday there's a 12:35 game, and then Monday there's a 6:05 game. So next week we'll be pretty far into that game when we get to our Nats talk. But again, with there being 5 games against Miami and 3 against Atlanta, we got to find a way to win 6 out of these 8 games if we're trying to climb our way back into this division. I think that this is a big push for the Nats. So they got to find a way to try to take both these series. Carol, what are some of your thoughts?
Definitely agree that they want to make a push to try to right the ship. 19 games in, 8-11, like Ron said, similar winning percentage to when they were so-called slumping last year. So it's nothing to it but to do it, especially against division opponents. They're up right now. Look like they're getting the starting pitcher out for Atlanta now. I believe he just walked the man on in the top of the 4th. So yeah, they definitely have to right the ship. Winning 6 out of 8 would definitely be a good sign and a good move for them to try to do that, especially against I haven't really paid a lot of attention to the Marlins, especially with the COVID outbreak and them being, where they were. So it's definitely a chance for them to take a step in the right direction and get back in this abbreviated season playoff chase.
Yeah. Brian, what are some of your thoughts against going against these division rivals?
Yeah, I agree. At minimum, 6 out of 8 has to be the goal for these next 8 games. Miami, I think, is coming back to earth a little bit. I don't think they'll, at the end of the day, be a playoff team. I'd be surprised if they're a playoff team because they just don't have the talent to keep up with the rest of the teams in their division. So winning against Atlanta, I think, will be key too, because Atlanta is a team that can definitely win the NL East. They're a good team. They have a good offense. They've had some tough injuries to their pitching staff as well, but it's really up for grabs right now in the NL East. So really, if the Nationals, sitting with the record that they're sitting at and the winning percentage that they're sitting at, I think 6 out of 8 is probably what you need to have any real chance to get back into the NL East. I know the season, it just started, but it's come in, 40 games left is not a whole lot of time.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of a little bit of that, I think that you've got to make ground quickly, especially against the teams that you've lost ground to. Miami numbers are a little artificial because they hadn't played as many games, so their percentage was good, but they don't necessarily have as many wins. So these are a couple of the makeup games. So you got to make sure they lose those, so that way their percentage comes back down, as you were mentioning. But Atlanta won the division last year, right? So I mean, they're a good team, and I don't know if a wild card team is going to come from the East this year. There's a lot of really good other divisions out there. So they really got to try to find a way to win the East because there's definitely no guarantee with that wild card positioning. Arun, do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess, the Nats need to pick it up, but also they've extended the playoffs this year, so it's kind of, they could still technically make it. I guess it's like the play-in because the playoffs have become really watered down. So maybe, but yeah, they need to definitely start winning soon if they want to have a realistic chance of making the playoffs, because the season is so short that and then the Marlins, I don't know if they're good. They did beat up on the Orioles, but who knows? Maybe that was just like a fluke.
That's an unfortunate turn of events. I mean, I guess he just picked off the lead runner, so it wasn't a double play. But there was a ground ball that ended up fielder's choice, and they took it to the second baseman. The first baseman charged at it and threw it back, and they got the lead runner out at second. And so the Nats still have a base runner at first base, but with an additional out now.
Baseball play with the first baseman rushing in. He knew the man couldn't cover first in time, so yeah, Ty Boone is fast, but he definitely got a good throw on that. Got him out going in the second. Got Thane first and Robles at the plate now, 1 on, 1 out, top of the fourth. Nats trying to add to their 4-3 lead right now.
All right, I think. Do you want to talk about some football news, Carol, real quick, and then we can maybe get into some NBA stuff after that?
All right, we can talk a little bit of Washington football team news. If you checked out the page today or checked out any of social media, you see the Redskins have officially named the first minority team president in league and franchise history. Let's just think about that first. The first minority black man, let's go ahead and say it, to be a team president in the NFL. That's a huge accomplishment. Young man's name Jason Wright, ex running back. I believe he played at Arizona and a couple of other spots. He's a very business savvy. I haven't had a chance to really dig into him, but I've been doing a little bit of research. He was locally in the area. He's working for a law firm in some type of business capacity. Apparently, he's very business savvy and he's on the right path. He's 38 years old, has football background. As I said, he was a player and obviously had some business background and some other things. But definitely that's something huge for this team with everything that's going on, name change and diversion issues in the NFL, not just with the Washington football team. And it's just good to see this team is heading in the right direction. Now you have your first female full-time coach. You have your first minority head coach in franchise history. You have your first female running the media department, and now you have the first minority black man to be team president of the franchise and the NFL. So before I move on, I'll get your guys' take on that. Robbie, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, he's also the youngest team president in NFL history. So it's not only a minority, but the fact that he's only 38, just a couple of years older than me, it's an incredible thing. He's supposedly a really good businessman. He really has business sense. And I'm just excited to get somebody new, fresh blood in there. I think I really like the fact that we have now a minority president, and we now have a woman who's a VP of the operations with the media side of it. So I like having diversity with the executive group. There's a lot of rumblings going on that the minority owners are trying to force Dan to sell the team. There's been a ton of rumors about that this week. It's going to be interesting to see if he end up caving under pressure. I mean, the minority owners own about 40% of the stake of the company, so it's not nothing. It's not like you can just ignore them. Or
I was going to try to leave that alone because I covered that on the show yesterday. But let's go ahead and delve into that a little. All right, because there's a lot of political stuff involved, and we try to keep that.
Yeah, I know, but it's
Robbie brought it up, so I have to speak on it now. All right, there are 40% minority owners that feel that things that depart with the story that came out that Snyder knowingly knows what's going on. Now, the catch-22 behind that is Daniel Snyder has just filed a defamation lawsuit against one of the minority owners, saying that he was the one that was spreading some of the rumors and putting some of the stuff out there about a link to him, Jeffrey Epstein, and Donald Trump, which is why he's now going to court to sue one of the minority owners about this situation. And we all know the Jeff Bezos connection with the Washington Post, him wanting to be an NFL owner. So when they broke the story about the sexual harassment that was going on, we mentioned how all of that linked up with Bezos and all of these allegations that came out that didn't get mentioned, that we couldn't speak about, that I'm still not going to speak about because I'm not trying to get sued by anybody. But it's a sticky situation. But the point remains, he's 60% owner. He has the majority. He's not going away. The only way that they can actually force him out as if some of those allegations are linked to him and he's actually charged. And then you will see the league maybe vote to get him out, and then he will be voted out, just like we had in the NBA with Donald Sterling. So it's a stretch. A lot of folks want to blame Daniel Snyder for the path of the franchise. He's the head of head of it. He's the owner, so yeah, he gets responsibility. But as I said over and over, he's made mistakes like any other owner has. In the last, I say, 8 to 10 years, he's done nothing but open his wallet and say, "What do y'all need to win?" And that's what you want from your owner. Everybody talks about the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Doesn't matter. Y'all said y'all wanted him to back off. He did. He's not in the media. He's not talking about who he wants to do this. And now he's in the background, and y'all still going to demonize him. So, I mean, until the Super Bowl gets won by the Washington football team, folks are going to hate him for so many different reasons. But in my opinion, he's not going anywhere. He's 6% owner, and that's all I got to say.
Your man almost just got a grand slam. Yeah, just so close. Yeah, it just sailed just wide, but two outs. Look how close this gets. It's just I mean it's a couple feet, but it's not far, not far.
Off of the fair pole now. After Howie had done it so many times, they want to start trying to hit it off the fair pole. They said it's not even fun just hitting a regular home run. We wanted the ding off the fair.
The ding, right? So, but I mean, I'll just say, I'm happy that Dan is making some of these moves. Hopefully, they pan out. I definitely think having these young, diverse group around him will only help. Dang it.
Yeah, it's been. They had the bases loaded, the Nationals and the Braves, and innings back to back to back, and nobody's got a grand slam. So they're getting on base, they're just not getting no home. So that's what 9 men left on base and 3 innings by both teams. So classic NL East division battle.
Right. So we'll see how it all turns out. Let's talk about the other big piece of the news, which is Alex Smith returning to football practice.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I'm still going to stick behind the statement I made when he got injured. I still do not feel he will take another snap at NFL quarterback. I said on the show yesterday at the Bar Radio, you can check it out on my page. I said if he does, he is the bravest, most courageous man I've ever known as an athlete and as a person. He's able to go out there and be able to compose himself, keep his eyes downfield when the rush gets around his legs, and still be a capable quarterback. I mean, I said it's not the physical aspect of it, it's the mental aspect. Joe Theismann, who I constantly talk about this in this situation, he said that was the hardest part. It wasn't the physical part. It was the fact of being able to keep his eyes downfield when the rush came and folks was at his legs. So if he is able to actually go out there and get some snaps in as a quarterback, I will be thoroughly impressed and I will eat my words. But I still think it's between Kyle Allen and Haskins. And as I said before, don't be surprised if it's Kyle Allen, because with no preseason and new offense, new offensive coordinator, and new game plan, you want to have some familiarity with the offense. So, but Alex Smith, I can do nothing but take my hat off to the progress he's made. I couldn't watch the comeback thing, and I'm glad, because I have a photographic memory. I want to see those tragic and horrific images. But I have nothing but respect for him. We loved him when he was playing. They were 6-2. Felt like he had the team in a good place, and then that crazy.
We were there, man. We thought that the whole going into that game, I remember thinking we have a great team. We have an opportunity to beat a really good team. We had a really great tailgate, great pregame show. And then that break happens in front of us, and the whole season pretty much goes down the toilet with that move.
Yeah, that was, and then since we talked about the story, you heard the rumors about the reason why Kareem Bibbs wasn't in that game, because he was apparently doing some hanky-panky with Jay's side chick. Oops, I wasn't supposed to talk about that. He wasn't playing that game, and I forgot the running back that took his place missed the block that unfortunately led to Alex Smith getting hurt in that tragic incident. So, I mean, I can't say tragic, but that horrific injury that, he almost did die because he had sepsis. So he had, like I say, he's a very determined individual. We've seen that through his whole football career. And the fact that he's able to come back from such an injury and is cleared to play, it's amazing. Like I said, if I got to eat my words and he does end up playing another down in football, I will not be mad. I will happily take that L, because he deserves it. He's showing how much he loves his game. And I can do nothing but take my hat off to him.
Arun, do you have any comments about any of this Washington football news?
Yeah, on paper, the president hiring looks good. It's good to get the first minority owner. And as that Dan Snyder lawsuit, just one note, it was an Indian website, which was completely random. So he is suing a former employee. And yeah, I think Alex Smith, I would change my stance a little bit. I didn't think he was going to play, but now I think there is a chance he's going to play because Kyle Allen, even though he does know the system, he did close out the season pretty badly last year with the Panthers. And Haskins, I think they would like to give him some snaps. They'll definitely, like, if it's a tie, they'll give Haskins the starting job. But I don't know, it's like still way too early. And I hope all the off-season workout videos are true, but I'm not going to buy into that until like I actually see it on the football field.
Yeah, we're always winning the off season, right? That's a famous quote coming out of the Washington football team.
You got to look at the way the team is going with Rivera. He's making decisions. You know, he's the guy. They still haven't officially hired a GM, so you know that he's basically making a.
Well, now that isn't this
kind of the same thing? But you see the fact that he was able to do the draft his way. That he decided to cut guys. Immediately. We've seen in the past how there have been a so-called struggle over decisions of that magnitude. But we see that he has full control. We see that he's, a man of his word. He's diversifying his team. He's giving them a new focus and new direction. And from I read an article that he had a inspiring conversation with the team on Thursday after practice that, letting folks know, what's what, where they stand at and what they're trying to do and what they're trying to build. Basically, his way is my way or the highway. If you're not going to do it the way I'm asking you to do it, then you're not going to be here. And we haven't had that in this town in a long time. And it's going to be good to see this team take the next step. And especially just to close it out, talking about Reuben Foster. He's an X factor. You've heard me talk about him and Dugenay when we've had him on. And stay tuned, Dugenay will be on coming up in the upcoming season of Washington football. He hasn't been on yet because there's been no preseason to talk about. But once the season starts, we'll be breaking down the X's and O's of this team. But it's just good to see the direction when you have true leadership. You have someone that has a plan and has NFL football experience, not arena football league experience.
Right. I think, do we have a little bit of time to talk a little NBA playoffs and then we'll wrap it up? Or is there anything else you want to talk about football?
Let's see. Anything else popping in the NFL this week? Not that I saw too much going on. The Redskins news they're making,
swear jar. Football.
I got it slipped. I was so good.
You were so good.
I was so close. Now that should have ended it now.
You should have ended it 3 minutes ago and you would have been fine.
I'm about to get you ready to go to the NBA. Go ahead and take it over, Robbie.
All right. So let's talk about two quick things. One is the Wizards were able to get a win, even though Boston rested everybody, and it's like a barely a win in the same way that most people consider it. But they did get the win, and so they weren't shut out completely in the win category. Arun, your quick thoughts on that one win that they got?
Yeah, the Wizards also, they didn't play Rui Hachimura in this one, so it was a kind of weird game. It's fun seeing Taco fall. Brad Stevens was challenging a play with like a few minutes to go in the game, which was pretty random. So I think the Celtics were still trying for some reason. But yeah, Washington got out with the win and then immediately had to leave the bubble. So good for them.
Right. Brian, any final thoughts on the Wizards' time in the bubble?
Thank goodness it's over, I guess. Thank goodness it's been a long season, and it ended with them falling behind teams that weren't even playing. So, I mean, it's good they got one win against the Celtics. I'm actually watching the Celtics now against the Sixers in their first playoff game. They look well rested. I can say that for sure. None of their main players played against the Wizards, and it shows. So I guess good for the Wizards for getting one win. But yeah, thank goodness their season's over.
Right. So the other interesting thing that comes out of the bubble, obviously, is that 8th seed in the West, Portland versus Memphis. in an interesting matchup. Arun, what were your thoughts in the first ever NBA play-in game?
Yeah, it was kind of a weird back and forth game. In the first quarter, I thought the Trailblazers were going to easily take care of business and blow out the Grizzlies, but then the Grizzlies came storming back with like Jonas Valanciunas and of course like Ja Morant and Dylan Brooks, and Brandon Clark had a bunch of corner threes. But then in the fourth quarter, it was similar to the first game of the bubble where the Grizzlies had a lead and then the Trailblazers came like storming back, and like Carmelo hit a clutch three. Like even though that was his only make of the three, he knocked it down. CJ McCollum, it wasn't Dame Lillard, but CJ McCollum making big play after big play, and he might have like a back injury. But it was like probably in the long run it'll make a more interesting first round series because the Trailblazers, they probably need to be rested against this Lakers team to have any chance to beat them.
Right. So a couple of games have already happened today. The Nuggets played the Jazz. They won 135-125 in overtime.
Great game.
And the Raptors beat the Nets 134-110. So, Brian, what are some of your thoughts on that Jazz-Nuggets game?
It was, Donovan Mitchell did all he could to get the Jazz the win. He scored 57 points. He's I think he's the youngest player to score 50 points in a playoff game since Michael Jordan did it against the Celtics in 1986. This was a good back and forth game, but again, and you know what else is kind of funny is that these two teams actually just played a double overtime game last weekend. And here they are playing again, another overtime game in the first game of their playoff matchup. I think Denver is the better team overall. I think they have the stronger roster. Utah's without Mike Conley, who went to visit he left the bubble for the birth of his son. So I think that's an X factor for sure for Utah. But this was a good start to the playoffs for sure. Anytime you get an overtime game to start the playoffs, that's something exciting. But I think overall Denver is the better team in that matchup for sure.
Arun, did you see any of the Raptors-Nets game or know anything about that?
Yeah, I actually did watch this game, and it was the Raptors were up as many as 33 points in the first half, and somehow in the fourth quarter it was a single-digit game. But then I think the Raptors really pulled away in the fourth quarter, and they were up by 25 before the starters left the game. And Kyle Lowry played great in the first half. Brooklyn, I think they're just like missing half their team. It's remarkable that they were 5-3 in this bubble. I didn't think they were going to even get a win, and they almost beat the Trailblazers in that game that would have like put the Phoenix Suns in the playing game. And I honestly was thinking Phoenix should be in this game instead of the Nets, but I think the Nets in years to come will be a team to be reckoned with it when KD ever comes back at 100%. But the Raptors, they look like they could make a run potentially to the conference finals and maybe even the finals if they can shut down Giannis.
That's pretty amazing thinking about where the Raptors were last year and then who people thought that they lost and they thought, oh, they'll never make it back there, that they were kind of it was the Kawhi Leonard show, and it turns out they could still be pretty good without him. So just going over real quickly the different matchups. Milwaukee is the 1. They'll play Orlando, which is the 8. We just talked about Toronto, Brooklyn. That's the 2-7 matchup with Toronto being the 2. Boston, Philadelphia in a very close game right now. Boston's the 3. Philadelphia is the 6. And Indiana, Miami. Indiana is the 4. Miami is the 5. So a lot of great matchups there. In the West, Portland squeaked by, but they got in. They're the 8th seed. They're playing the number 1 Lakers. The Clippers are the number 2 seed. They play the number 7 Dallas Mavericks. Denver's the number 3 seed. We talked about them before. They beat Utah, so they're up 1-0 in that series. They're the 3 seed. Utah is the 6. And Houston, Oklahoma City is the 4-5. I think that'll be a great matchup as well, especially since a lot of Houston's best players once played for Oklahoma City. It's some great matchups and a lot of great stuff. So I'll just ask you guys each one last question. What's your series that you're most excited about watching in the first round? I'll start with you, Arun.
The series I'm most excited to watch is probably the one you mentioned, OKC, Houston, like just based on Chris Paul getting traded and James Harden and him having a falling out. Would have been even more excited if Russell Westbrook was healthy. If he comes back healthy, it'll be an even better series. because he has a quad injury, and that's a similar injury that Kawhi Leonard has had, and he didn't come back. But Russell Westbrook, of course, is an alien, so you can never rule him out. But Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, they're former guys from the Clippers, but they're like really stepping in Paul George's role, and they might be even better than they were last year. It just depends on if they can do the same thing. And then, of course, the Houston Rockets, like they're playing this weird small ball lineup, no center, but kind of work without Russell Westbrook. And James Harden, of course, is a great player. He can make anything work.
Yeah, that makes sense. Brian, what is your series that you're excited about that you're watching?
Well, this is going to sound weird, but I'm actually really interested to see the 1-8 matchup out in the West between the Lakers and the Trailblazers. The Trailblazers right now are obviously one of the hottest teams in the league, playing their way in through the bubble and then winning the play-in game. They're red hot right now. Lillard, McCollum, Anthony, even Nurkic had a great game on Saturday. And the Lakers honestly have not looked as crisp in the bubble. Maybe they're just waiting for the playoffs to rev it up. But I think that the Lakers might be vulnerable in this matchup. I think they're going to win in either 6 or 7 games, but I think this is definitely going to be a matchup to watch either way. I think this is going to be a good series. And I wouldn't, it would be crazy to see Portland, in the year that's been so unexpected. We've seen so much happen. An 8 pulling off an upset against a 1 doesn't sound too crazy to me, honestly.
I hope that's not true because they are playing for this guy, and I really hope that they.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, I hope that they find a way to pull it together for him. It's weird because I never root for LeBron James, but I will because they dedicated this season to Kobe. So,
and I just want to add that if the Lakers advance past the Portland Trailblazers, they'll be wearing their black uniforms the rest of the way in tribute to Kobe Bryant. So I think that's a nice little tribute if they do advance. But first, they have to get by Portland.
Yeah, it'll be.
I just wanted to say that the week after Kobe had died, that was the first game the Trailblazers did play the Lakers, and the Trailblazers did beat the Lakers.
They won, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be some crazy foreshadowing right there. So, well, thank you guys for breaking it down. I know we weren't going to do like a full NBA roundtable, but I thought it would just, now that the matchups have been set, it'd be fun to at least talk about that. But I really like the return to play bubble. Overall, just to ask your final question, thoughts on that. Brian, what were your thoughts on the return to play in general and the setup for the playoffs?
I think it's been great so far. I think the play has been great. A lot of really, really good and close games. It's been exciting to watch, and I think the playoffs are going to be interesting because this is really the first time we've ever had a playoff where there's been no home court advantage. Like I was talking to my roommate about this earlier, but there's no home court throughout this whole playoffs, and that's going to be a huge difference maker. We might see some upsets. I don't know. It's definitely interesting for sure, but I think the best thing to come out of this so far is definitely no positive tests so far, no coronavirus so far, and same with the NHL as well. I think those are the 2 best things that we could have hoped for, and as long as that keeps up, it should remain a pretty exciting bubble.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Arun, on the bubble so far and the first round of the playoffs?
Yeah, it's like as Brian said, it's been like really good play. I feel like it's like watching like practice players because they don't have as many nerves at times, and I feel like those guys are able to knock shots open. Like when there are no crowds watching, they have like kind of an advantage here, especially the role players. But it's good seeing like some really high scoring outputs, like Damian Lillard with like 2 back-to-back 50-plus games, and Donovan Mitchell with a 57-point game and an OT playoff game. So it's just been crazy, the bubble. But the home court doesn't really mean anything, and it's going to lead to probably some more competitive series, especially if it goes to Game 7, which should be pretty exciting.
Yeah, and there's been some triple doubles, even some players getting really close to triple doubles. So obviously, the play in both the hockey and the NBA, I don't think has diminished too much. Though there is still something missing with the fans. I've been watching this baseball game, and it's really interesting that they've got cutouts in Atlanta of the people that are, I guess, ticket holders. And one of the Nats players, after he made the final out of the inning, instead of tossing it to a fan, he walked over to one of the cardboard cutouts and handed it the ball after the play, which I thought was really funny.
Nice.
But I just, in general, like, there's definitely still something missing without having the fans there. I did like the fact that you could zoom in and have people live there. I talked about this a little bit, but it turns out that one of the guests we've had on this show in the past, Stuart, has gotten to experience being on one of the Zoom calls and being live. And I guess that they have a virtual background, which is your seat, and then they project you. So that way, when the camera comes to you, you can react in real time, which I thought was really cool. So I hope that they continue that for the playoffs, just to get a couple of fans in the building, even if it's just virtually. Because I think that that is something cool and unique that they've done that I haven't seen in any of the other sports so far. So, but yeah, I'm excited to see how the first round ends up going, and we'll definitely have you guys on to talk a little bit more as the playoffs go on, and just sort of give little recaps, even if we don't do full-blown 30-minute segments on the NBA playoffs. But I think we've at least covered it generally. I'll let Carol join us and let us know. I believe that there was a run scored by the Nationals in this inning. So they seem to be up 5-3 with runners on the corner. How did they get that run in? You're muted, Carol. Carol. Hold on. Carol, you're muted still.
Damn it, my bad. I pulled a Robbie. Yeah, I had the game on. I was doing some other stuff behind the background, trying to do some stuff to end the show. So I'm not even sure how they scored, but they scored.
Here, I'll pull it up because
real quick, but I lost track because I'm trying to set something up for the end of the show. This breaking new video.
Zubel Cabrera with the home run of 300.
Yeah, that's what it was. I did see that. Y'all guys were having talk. I didn't want to break y'all up. But
yeah, 391.
Yeah, I was setting up a video after the end of the show. Renegade 703 is later video he just dropped, trying to set it up for the OBS. So I was watching, but I wasn't watching. You caught me off guard, Robbie.
All right, I know. I keep on doing that. I keep on blowing up your spot. But I think we're done with our NBA coverage. So I'll let you, if you have any other final. I'll let Arun give his final thoughts, and then we'll let him go. Arun, any final thoughts on anything that we talked about?
Yeah, just back to the Nats. The umpire on Sunday made some two horrendous ball calls that should have been called strikes. I'm really in favor of bringing the robot umps. And final note is go Sixers, go beat the Celtics.
There you go. I'll root for the Sixers, maybe in the East as well. I'm rooting for the Lakers in the West. Brian, who are the teams you're kind of pulling for in this NBA?
Definitely Portland. I want Portland to do well because I love Carmelo Anthony, and I want to see the Thunder do well as also because they lost Russell Westbrook, and obviously they've lost so many players over the years, and they were expected to underachieve this season by so much. So I want to see the Thunder do well, beat the Rockets, but that'll be a close series for sure.
All right. Any other final thoughts that you want to leave us with this week?
No, just on a personal note, I want to thank everybody for all the birthday wishes and everything this past weekend. I really appreciate that. It was a great weekend. Other than that, let's go Yankees. Have a good night.
Yes, happy birthday again. I wish
Thank
you
you
before, but I will do it again, and hope you have a great year ahead. And you've been a great part of this team, you as well, Arun. And I appreciate both of you guys. And we'll have an interesting week next week to recap for sure.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me on.
For sure. All right. So this Nats game, the Nats are still up 5-3. There's base runners on the corners, and we'll see what they do here. Carol, any final thoughts that you have since it's already 9 o'clock? 2 hours flies by so fast.
Hey, man, we covering all the sports, man. We got all these sports going on at once, and we actually had some Washington football team news. So yeah, that.
Oh, the Mystics. We never covered the Mystics, but they've been falling.
Yeah, I said I was going to do a report on them. I'll say that for next week. Yeah, they're not playing well. They had a couple of players opt out, and I believe Aleta Don hasn't been.
Yeah.
So I'll give the recap. I said I was going to do it this week, but I got caught up with the breaking Washington football team news and forgot to even do that. So next week we're bringing some Mystics coverage. We don't mean to not cover the WNBA champions. There's been so much stuff going on. I'm not going to say I forgot, but there's just been so much stuff going on.
Right. I'll just say real quickly, I saw a couple of the games, and we'll talk about them more next week. But they play well at times, but without having some of their star players, it's they start off fast sometimes, and then they kind of fall apart in the end. And it's just they really started the season really well, but they just hit a rough patch, and they have not been playing particularly well. Unfortunately, the Nets are just got out of the inning. So they unfortunately gotten out there. So they're still up 5-3. And Carol, I'll let you sort of take it away with your final thoughts.
All right. Appreciate y'all checking us out. Make sure you go check out SportsOTHP.com for, as he mentioned, the Power Play Point podcast. Our apparel line, you can go check it out. Got the District of Champions gear on. Got the backdrop. Robbie got his on. Help represent. You see, we got Eric Kusa logo up in there. Stay tuned. We got a partnership going on with them. So just keep showing support. Keep on loving the show. We appreciate the new audience that we bringing on with the Zoom and everything. We appreciate all the contributors. Appreciate the folks just tuning in for real DC sports without the politics. You got tired of these folks doing the same old, not giving knowledge and insight, just giving them opinions. We give our opinions, but we give you insight also. So stay tuned for so much more. We got a lot of things in the works. I got some, some things that's coming from Sports on the Hill podcast. Make sure you check us out on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and a couple of others that we just got added to that I gotta get the new names of. We're coming at you. We're bringing you some of the best DC sports or the politics, because it's not just a catchphrase. It's not just a motto. It's what we do. Robbie, I'll let you sign off and see if I can get this video to play the way it's supposed to play through the OB.